Letters fly off a spinning globe from the US, UK, and Australia to spell SGK Studios present an Audio Pizza production.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Audio Pizza, where we're going to talk about the price of being blind. And in price, I mean dollars, pounds, rubles, and the like.
Rubles?
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Audio Pizza. Kayaker here, broadcasting live in the early hours of the morning in the United States Northeast Corridor, facing weather that you wouldn't even dream of. Hurricanes, rain, floods. But anyway, I'm sure in the UK things are much better under the well-built shed of Shaun. Shaun, how are you over there?
I'm very well, thank you, Kayaker. That was a great intro, by the way. It was very NPR. It was leaning into the mic. It was a lovely, soft, gentle voice. I'm really impressed. Well done, you. Now then, let's get to it. I have no idea what we're talking about today, but Kayaker is going to intro us into that a little later on. But first, I've got to warn all our listeners that Garth is here. He's had a drink. And he is in Australia. What more do you need to know? Hello, Garth.
I'm slightly speechless at this point. I've had
I wish you were.
What do you? Well, a couple of scotches and a port in.
Keep listening. This is going to be a stormer of an episode. Okay, Kayaker, what are we talking about today? Shut up, Garth.
Well, we're talking about how much tech costs versus, traditional mainstream tech, and is it time to sort of start phasing out these custom devices that are available for us in lieu of the more mainstream devices? Because a lot of cool stuff is coming out, be it glasses, be it smart devices, be it AI, that are replacing some of the things that we, rely on from time to time, like our customized book players and navigation devices and gadgets that, show distances and the like. So we're going to try to see, is it time to sort of go mainstream tech, and can we do it?
Unbelievable. Can I just say, before we get into this, it's not a case of we're going to see. This is what you're proposing, Kayaker.
Yes, exactly.
Don't throw me and Garth under the bus with you by saying, let's get rid of all specialised tech.
That's it. I'm sorry. You're going to have to get over it. Just, iPhone, that's all you've got. No, don't. You cannot even want a Victor Stream.
My quest on this topic came when I was given a Victor Reader Trek at LeaderDog as part of my O&M training to help me navigate. And my initial reaction was, what can this do that my iPhone can't do, considering the cost of the device? Last I checked, it was close to $1,000 US, where I could pick up an iPhone, a used iPhone, an iPhone SE or an iPhone 8 or something like that for, $400 or less. Or the entry-level iPhone now is probably $500 for the SE, thereabouts, right? So why would I choose a dedicated device that is customized to the blind when there's a mainstream device, an iOS device, or even an Android, that can essentially do everything that the Trek can do and more? Is it because we're so trained in the old style devices? Are there pros and cons of these devices that
you're not aware of?
Meet someone's needs? Yeah. It's just one of those things that I'm like, So I basically spent some time using the Trek and using a iPhone 8 that did not have a cell plan, and did a comparison to see what it would be like to have the same functionality in the Trek in just a dedicated iPhone. And I hate to say it, the Trek lost. It's the iPhone 8 to me was much more useful and more reliable than the Trek.
Okay, wait. When you say the Trek lost, in what way? Are we just comparing the GPS performance, or are you saying it lost because it was a single-use device compared to all the things you could do on your smartphone? Or are you just doing a comparison between the GPS performance?
Yeah, firstly, let's just categorize it for the actual intended use.
Okay, the intended uses that the Trek sort of markets at is playing audiobooks. So it's got an SD card to download books and articles that you can play. So it will read audio formats. So function one. The other main function that it does is it provides GPS navigation. Pick a destination, and it gives you instructions on how to navigate to that destination. And those are sort of the two main functions that I sort of looked at on the Trek that they pitch it. Victor, Reader, Trek. And the advantages of the Trek almost seem to be the ease of getting books onto it. I almost think it's a procedural thing that people sometimes are more comfortable with older tech than taking the time to learn something new. I found the Trek incredibly clunky to do input, and maybe that's a sign of my age, shall we say, in that I was never very good at the T9 texting input. Oh. But to this day, if someone, call 1-800-MY-APPLE, it's like, I don't know what those numbers are. I have to I want the numbers,
Turn on keyboard hints so it tells you what's on each number.
Exactly. I can't. It's like, okay, A, B, C, D, E, F. Oh, is the Q skipped? Is the Q, where does the Q go? And
which one has 4 of them?
Yeah.
One of them's got 4. I can't remember. Is it that one?
Yeah, exactly. For me, if you say that I prefer texting with a numeric keypad to doing letters, I cannot respect that opinion. I think that is old school, ancient. Yeah.
You can't respect that opinion.
No, I cannot respect that opinion.
Oh. You don't mean you can't sort of, you disagree with that opinion. You think the opinion is in itself inherently wrong.
I would argue that if someone took the time to learn an iOS keyboard, they would be more efficient than they would with a T9 style thing. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's super T9 texters out there that can do a great deal with it.
Okay, so hang on. You flick around and double tap to do your text entry. Is this what? Am I right? Are you still doing that?
I do the split tap approach. So I will find the letter and tap with the other thumb. I do 2 thumbs. So if I'm using the left side of the keyboard, my left thumb will move, and then I'll tap with the right. I'm not doing the slide and release. Okay. Yeah, I still use that original keyboard method. But I will say that I use dictation more. So if I can speak into my phone for an address, that's a lot easier than saying,
yes,
pick the town, pick the state, pick the town, pick the street, pick the number.
Oh, I don't respect that.
The input for. Okay, Shaun, let's hear you. What do you have, Shaun? Do you have a Victor Trek, and how are you using it?
No. I know lots of people that use T9 very fluently and don't even have to think about it.
That's right.
You could almost argue this is all a generation thing when you came into tech, right? Because T9 was the main way of texting back in the day, text entry. It was the only way for most of the phones. So
and Morse code was the first way to send information over a wire way back when, but we don't use Morse code anymore because it's inefficient.
I get you, but I think what we're talking about are what are the benefits of this tech. And the benefits I can find, let's stick with the Trek for now, is the physical buttons. I think the main problem is the touchscreen interface that people have. That's why people like it. And let's just go back to who gave you access to this device in the first place. Was LeaderDog, the organization that specialized in O&M. Is that right?
Correct.
So
correct.
Why would they see some benefit in giving this to people? There must be a need for this for some people. No? Yes?
Absolutely.
I think there's a need to solve a navigation issue. I think there's a need to solve audiobooks playing for people who are blind, right? But the problem I have with a lot of this tech is that people will look at a mainstream device like an iPhone and will say, that does too many things. That will require a cell phone plan. That will require additional support or additional things that it doesn't necessarily have to be used to support a blind individual. It has other functions that aren't blind specific. And I think some of these organizations, out of habit, look to blind tech companies to support their needs rather than going to a mainstream solution. And I think it's time for these organizations, including state organizations and government organizations, who say, oh, no, we can't possibly give you an iPhone. That's a normal device. That's not an accessible tech device. How can we justify that? And I think it's time for a shift in thinking.
I will agree with you in certain aspects of what you're saying. Just to take it back to the text entry thing first, right? T9 can be really efficient, and I would say that many people could be much more efficient with T9 than you can be with your text input on the keyboard, on the QWERTY keyboard that you have on the touchscreen, right? It's just because you have to think about, to do a B, I need to hit the two key twice. A lot of people, like Shaun was saying, are extremely fluent with that form of text entry. I would say to you, learn Braille input, because it's so much quicker than trying to use the keyboard. The keyboard is fine. I can usually touch the right key I want and take my finger off it and it enters the thing. It's not too bad. But Braille screen input is much more efficient for me. Learn that.
Yeah,
it's another cognitive load for you to learn a new input method, as was learning T9 when you were given this Victor Reader Stream. It's another thing that you find difficult. So it may not be the right thing for you. So I think, honestly, these devices are made by companies who understand their clientele and are making devices that suit the needs of those people. You're right, they're not the only show in town anymore. I am totally happy with my iPhone. I would much prefer an iPhone rather than a Victor Reader Stream plus 17 other devices that I would need to come close to mirroring the functionality that I get out of my simple one iPhone. But that's me. And there's a lot of people who really don't want to have to learn a whole heap of new stuff just so that they can open an app on their phone to do their GPS, when they could just pick up the device that they've been given and use that device because it works for them and the way that they like to interact with their device. Where I will completely agree with you is in terms of state funding. So here in Australia, I can quite easily buy a Victor Reader Stream or what's this thing I've got over here? Where is it?
This is audio only, Garth. Don't be holding it up to the microphone. We don't know.
Media player. Daisy player. Document reader.
Sense player.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you've got a Sense player.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's basically a little same sort of thing as Victor Reader Stream, but you can install Android apps. There's a bunch of customized apps, sort of officially supported apps that you can install directly with my little keypad here. It's got lots of physical buttons that I can click around. Yeah. Netflix, Zoom, all sorts of things that I can install and then sort of navigate them with the strange interface that it has. Anyway, I can quite easily buy this device on the NDIS, $1,600 Australian or something it was, some ridiculous amount. But I can't buy an iPhone because an iPhone is a mainstream device. An iPhone is much more functional and much more usable to me because I don't have to learn all the new input. It's T9 input for text on here. I'm like you, Kayaker. I have to think, I want a B, that's twice on the 2. B, E. Okay, where's the E? A, B, C, D, E. It's on the 3. Okay. Yes. 2 clicks of the 3. This is what my brain has to do to input text on this thing.
That's how I use Braille, by the way. It's exactly the same for me with Braille. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's entirely my point, Shaun. That's entirely my point.
Yeah.
What's comfortable for me is not going to be the same thing that's going to be comfortable for the next person. So back to what I was trying to say, Kayaker, is I completely agree with you. From a state funding perspective, that's where I think it would be wonderful if they would open up and go, okay, what is the best use of our money for this particular person to get them the functionality that they're wanting to get? Mm-hmm. For some people, it is going to be this Sense player. For other people, not so much.
But I would argue your statements that there's a cognitive load for learning the Victor Trek reader. The physical buttons have functions on each of the keypads depending on what mode you're in, and there's other things. So you have to memorize those. And if you get them wrong, there's no sort of on-the-fly tooltip to really help you at that particular moment.
You're using that same device over and over, right? So you're going to learn how to do it.
But those skills aren't transferable. Whereas if you learn one thing for the iPhone, you can use all your apps. So if you're going to take the time to learn something, why not learn something mainstream instead of something blind specific? That's my main point.
There's a lot of people who have dexterity issues, and using a touchscreen is more difficult for them. Maybe their fingers shake and they're accidentally double tapping. And there's, you can go into settings accessibility and try and
I was just going to say, it's like
change some of the settings to get over that, to make
Apple has thought about that.
Yeah, and they can make it more usable. But that's not the same as just pressing a button. And a button that has a little tactile thing that you can feel. It doesn't need any additional customization. It's already made in a way that is useful for that particular person.
Yeah, I think there are always going to be exceptions to the rule. But in general, I still would argue that for the average blind individual, use of mainstream tech and learning mainstream skills is going to be more of a benefit for them than learning customized controls on a customized device.
I would agree with you. All of what I have said does not disagree with that actual statement.
All right.
Well, what I want to ensure that we are not promoting is that this, the iPhone is right and the Sense Player is wrong.
The problem I think we've got here, and it feels like we kind of jumped to the end of the book already. I want to go back to the performance of the Stellar
This was
Trek.
the worry I had with this episode.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, we got there. It is bound to happen sooner or later. But I think that the worry is, look, we can all agree there is always a market for this specialized tech, right? I mean, Garth's absolutely right. There's always going to be someone where a touchscreen just isn't the right method of controlling a device. It's just not the right interface. Maybe physical buttons are the best way to go. And not to do with, a learning curve or putting the time in to learn the interface, just purely because of whatever physical reason may be. So there's always going to be a need for a different way to access something, this specialist hardware. But if we say, look, and I agree with this statement. I kind of feel the same way. I've got none of this specialist tech. Everything I can do with my smartphone. The problem is, then doesn't this tech just fade away and is therefore no longer available to anyone at all? It's that old argument of, yes, it's a small market for specialized tech, hence the price. But, I mean, should we wish it away?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. But then again, if we're saying the smartphone's the answer to everything...
It might die a natural death,
Yeah, but that's a bad thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's a difficult one because I agree with your statement, Kayaker.
Yeah.
The smartphone can do it all.
Yeah.
I agree with you, totally. And, the price is a massive factor, and I'm constantly going on about the price of things. It makes it inaccessible to so many people with disabilities anyway, because it's out of reach financially. But does that mean
Except
that...
for state funding.
Yes, okay, state funded, but that's not always available to everyone, depending on which country you're in. There's certain criteria you need to meet, like you need to be in education.
In which state you're in some cases in the US.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But the point is, there's always going to be a need for specialist tech. But how do you keep that market even going? Why would a company even bother if there's no call for it because smartphones have killed it? Like the smartphone has killed so many other mainstream devices and services as well.
It certainly has, but I'm not sure that's a bad thing. When you have to spend $1,000 per item for your specialized tech, when you can buy a smartphone that does it all in one compact unit, I think that's a good thing. And I think that there are other solutions for the input problems. If you have trouble with the touchscreen, get the little portable Bluetooth
Cable
keyboard or yes, exactly. There are other options that are, again, somewhat specialized, but a heck of a lot cheaper than these specialized units with their high prices. I would argue that you could get an iPhone, the Able keyboard, but even if it was a mini Bluetooth keyboard, some way that had tactile buttons that you could press that you could control your phone with. And you also have external battery packs. The other argument I had, well, I don't want to, it has so much extra battery power. You know what? For $20, you get a clip-on magnetic MagSafe battery pack that's half the size of a deck of cards that just sticks on the back of your phone and still is smaller than the specialized Victor Reader Trek that's, very thick. I just think that people sometimes get locked into a mindset where they think that their blind tech is their best solution, and they're just not thinking a little bit outside the box for mainstream solutions that will work well?
I don't know. I know quite a few blind friends of mine who are very tech savvy, have iPhones, use them for a lot of stuff, and choose to also have a Victor Reader stream. They prefer to listen to podcasts on their Victor Reader. I don't quite understand it myself. If I can have just one device and all of the stuff is there, that's fine. You know, some people just like to have different devices to do different things. You can't use a paring knife to carve a roast.
You know what, Garth? I've got to say, it feels like we're struggling a little bit to justify our side of the argument. Because, I mean, what Kayaker's saying there does make sense. And it innately feels wrong to say we don't need these anymore. Right? It just feels like we shouldn't say that just in case there is a need, because we know what it's like when a device isn't accessible and we feel left out of a certain technology, like when first touchscreen technology started to come in through the phones, right? And we're all using our Nokia E95s or whatever it was with talks. And we start seeing the touchscreen come in and we start to feel, okay, we're out of the loop here. And this is a massive move in technology. And we were worried about that until the iPhone came along with VoiceOver and we felt like we're in it again. But what I'm saying is it's difficult because I can't argue against Kayaker's points there. And the point you make about, people, they have a second device. Yeah, there are preferences, but that's just because the devices exist in the first place. Otherwise, they would just get a second smartphone, a second, tablet to listen to their media on. And I understand why people want multiple devices. Sometimes you want to, go through your emails while listening to an audiobook on another device. So I get that. But why should that other device be specialised, especially when we're talking about book readers and GPS things and things like that? So I think Kayaker's winning me around.
Okay. That's a first.
Okay, hang on. Before we go on any further, let me just go right back to the start with the Stella, because I'm really interested in this. The Stella Trek versus a standard GPS app on your iPhone 8. So, why was it better, or why was it the same? I mean, what was your experience there?
Well, one point of clarification, it's the Victor Reader Trek. I do not have the Stellar Trek. So the one feature that I liked about the Victor Reader Trek in navigation was the way it announced intersections. So it would give me the cross streets on the left and the right. I thought that was very useful. Unfortunately, there have been some mainstream apps that now do that as well on the iPhone. So that was its one selling point that I enjoyed the most. But that feature is now available in other apps that I can run on my phone, such as...
You mean blind-specific apps?
Well,
yes.
Blind-specific apps. I was surprised when I was using the walking directions that I got the additional information about the cross streets, and I forget what app I was using at the time on my iPhone. So I'm like, oh crap! There goes the one selling point I had for the Victor Reader, giving a little more information. It's gotten a lot better for walking directions these days on both Google Maps, Apple Maps, as well as the specific ones that we might use, such as Voice Vista or some of the other apps out there. I have not tried. I don't know if. I guess you don't have it over there yet. Apparently the Oko app now supports walking directions as well, and it's supposed to be pretty good.
Oko app,
but I have not tested
aware
that.
of this
Yeah. That's the one that gives the traffic light signals?
Initially, it was there just to help you use crossings, pedestrian crossings. It uses AI to identify when it's okay to cross by just looking at the lights, not the traffic, by the way. It just recognizes when it's time to walk and not. And it also helps you identify where a crossing is. But they've recently just added the mapping capability as well, so it's able to take you different places. Only available in America, Canada, Singapore and Tokyo and places like that at the minute, but they are rolling it out worldwide.
Okay, so that was the main selling point that the Victor Reader Trek had that I was excited about, because it did give me more information about the intersections, and the iPhone wasn't as good as that, but it's caught up now. So it's an even playing field. So for the cost of my iPhone and all the other things it does, I come out with a less expensive solution than the Victor Reader Trek. The other problem with the Victor Reader Trek is support. I had to, quote, send it back. And it turned out there was just a bug in their update. When I was traveling to the UK, I went to download international maps. and it failed all the time. It just said unsupported. It would not do it properly, whether it was via the SD card or the Wi-Fi. I had to like stand on my head and like do it 5 times in a row, one map at a time. And they're like, oh yeah, it's a bug. You found this bug, and it still hasn't been fixed. So if there are bugs in these specific devices, and of course the Victor Reader Trek is sort of, I don't think it's even available anymore because they've replaced it with newer units. I've got a device that's going to lack support. It's not going to be updated, whereas my mainstream iPhone will get updates for as long as the hardware is capable of supporting the updates in the new OSs. So I feel like I've got a more valuable device in my smartphone that has better support through Apple's accessibility things if I run into trouble. I've got updates that are going to be available for a longer period of time. And the number of people who are giving feedback and reporting bugs that are going to get fixed means that the update cycles are going to be faster for my smartphone than it would be for the dedicated devices.
I haven't got a comeback for that, Garth. Quick.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose
So
we could say you were using the Victor Reader Trek, is that what it's called?
yes.
Yes. So that's the older model, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, to be fair, you haven't tried the newer Stella Trek, which may have better performance.
Correct.
We don't know.
Could.
Okay.
But my comments only refer to the Victor Reader Trek. That's my experience.
But again, I'm very interested why Leader Dog would give this device out in the first place if they didn't see a benefit over something else. Did they tell you why they actually made this available to you?
No, but they like to give them to guide dog users and their O&M clients who are tech savvy if they will use them. I think the real problem is it's the same thing with the government organizations. They will look at an iPhone as a cell phone, and they think that they need a cell phone plan and there's a continuing cost to it, where this is a one-shop, one-time purchase. And that's the wrong way to think about it. As I said, I was using an iPhone without a SIM. It did not have a cell plan. It was basically a Wi-Fi device. I could download maps just like I could on the Victor Reader Trek. I could do everything essentially over Wi-Fi just as I could with the Wi-Fi on the Victor Reader Trek. So it's a different way of thinking about it. You have to look at the iPhone not as a phone, but as a Wi-Fi device, almost like an iPod Touch with GPS capability. That's how I'd look at it. Yeah.
Takeaway: don't buy a Victor Reader Trek.
Wow, slightly harsh, but yeah, I mean, I can't argue against any of those points, to be honest. And look, let's be fair, Kayaker, you've gone hands-on, you've done the comparison, so it's hard to argue against any of that. The only thing I would say is that I assume that the specialist hardware has better performance from acquiring GPS signal and accuracy, because I assume it's a slightly bigger device.
Oh, I wouldn't say that with the Trek.
Okay.
Not on the Trek.
I think the Stella was quite significantly better from what I've heard, but the Trek was not great.
It took a long time to acquire a signal on the Trek.
Yeah, I think you get a signal quicker on the iPhone.
Yeah. It needed a Wi-Fi connection because it would sort of cache the satellite data, so it would have a better idea of how to connect. But there are many times when it's out and no GPS signal, and I have to power it off and power it back on, and it would come up with the signal.
Okay, that's terrible.
The GPS.
Then I've made my decision.
Not great.
Yeah, okay, so don't bother with that one. But to be fair, I think they discontinued that one anyway in favour of the Stella Trek, right?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. Okay. So we're
it's
saying
good
this.
that we're speaking with knowledge here. Yes.
Yeah. And this.
Yeah. So it's ancient knowledge, but I think the argument, the statement still exists. The specialized devices, even the next model, are going to be more expensive. You're going to have less support. They're redundant to features that you already get on your smartphone. And their only advantage is maybe, as Garth pointed out, the tactile buttons and the comfort of specialized device that'll be subsidized by government organizations.
Yeah. Hey, if I can get a device, if I being a person generally who is blind, let's say without a job, because it's bloody hard to get a job as a blind person these days, as I'm sure, we're all quite aware of.
Yes.
If I can get somebody give me a device for free compared to having to spend an inordinate amount of money for an iPhone, then you know what? I will work out how to use that thing. because
True.
it'll help me get stuff done. That I
Yeah,
wanna
but
get done.
again, we're not going back to the usefulness and the performance of the device itself. We're going back to the absolute dreadful way that government agencies are run.
Yeah, funding
Yeah.
decisions. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There are cases where there's blind tech that is specific for us that is not and never will be mainstream. The most specific thing I can think of is any type of braille display. That's not a mainstream device.
No.
Those types of companies are still going to be around, and they solve a problem that is critical. So I'm not poo-pooing all blind specific tech.
To be fair, those companies are also the same ones that are making the Victor Reader Stream Sense player that I have here.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, but you've sort of unleashed another rant that I may have.
A drunken rant coming up. Brace yourselves.
Insert dramatic music here.
That was really loud. So, really like all these devices, by the way. Let me preface what I'm about to say with the fact that HIMS make some really, really cool stuff. They make the Braille Sense 6, which is their latest iteration of there's a 32 cell and a 20 cell referring to the number of Braille cells on the device. So there's a 32 cell Braille display. It's basically a Android tablet, if you like, with customized software that you can also hook up to a computer as a display if you wish. But it's completely functional on its own as a note taker, as a document reader, editor, Dropbox, all that sort of stuff. So you can download stuff from Google Drive or Dropbox, whatever you like. In Australian dollars, very, very round figures, this goes for about $7,000, 32 cells.
Wow.
HIMS have released a 40-cell device called the Emotion, which is very similar. It does not have Dropbox. So broadly speaking, for Braille displays, for those of you who don't use them, Braille devices come in two main categories, the note taker and the display. So the display, like a Focus 40, something like that, is really mostly meant to be just hooked up to your computer. Your computer does all the work, and the display is like it sounds. It's a display, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the note taker, which has a lot of the functionality built in as well. And obviously, note takers traditionally more expensive. So HIMS have released this Emotion, which I have the Braille Sense 6 and the Emotion. Really nice hardware. HIMS makes some really nice hardware.
Oh, you got 'em both.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
So, as I said, 40 cells compared to 32 cells. It has note taker functionality. The Emotion is like, get a Braille Sense, get a Focus 40, and meet in the middle. So it's more than a display, but it's not really a proper note taker. It doesn't have Dropbox, no sort of online capability other than
Book services,
library services.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
Book services, yeah. And it'll do its own software update over Wi-Fi as well. So it can certainly hook up to the internet. The hardware is there to do, I would think, everything that the Braille Sense 6 can do. Maybe not quite, but pretty close, It's really, from a hardware perspective, it's got 40 cells rather than 32. It's newer, more ergonomic. It's a really nice piece of kit. But, as I said, it doesn't have Dropbox, doesn't have Android app access to go and download various apps like Zoom and so forth that you can with the Braille Sense. Now, the general argument is that this tech is so expensive mostly because of the display. We've all heard that, the Braille displays, they're really expensive.
Yeah.
Email, I can't do email on the Emotion other than by hooking it up as a display. Braille Sense, I can do email.
Okay.
So what do you think the price of the Emotion would be? Have a guess.
We're talking 8 more cells. So what's the price
8
per
more
cell? Kayaker, you go first.
I'm going to go something radical. I'm going to say it's 6,000 only because it has more cells, but the feature set is less, and they're going to charge more for the software features. So I'm going to say it's actually 6,000 instead of 7.
I'm going
That's
the
a
other way.
reasonable
I'm going to
guess.
say 8,500. I'm going to say it's more expensive.
4.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So you can tell me that the display, that the cells cost you a lot of money and the pricing is all about the cells. It's software differences. We go from 7 down to 4,000.
What can be the justification for that? Are we talking what? We're talking software development,
We're
software
paying for
support?
functionality.
Yeah, but that's artificial, right? Because there's no reason
Absolutely.
at all those functions couldn't be installed or replicated on the emotion from the Braille sense. Absolutely no reason at all.
No.
Yeah.
Look, maybe there is. Maybe the processor in the Braille sense.
Even
This is
so,
a really long bow that I'm trying to pull here. But maybe the process is a little bit different.
it could be, but the cost of processors is going to be the difference.
It's minimal, very, very minimal. It's totally about what can the market stand for the device, for the functionality set. And look, I get it. These companies have to make money where they can because, as we are seeing, more and more of them are going out of business because there's just really not a big enough market. So they have to be able to make money where they can. And if that means they're going to charge an extra... And look, I've maybe exaggerated. I think maybe the Braille sensor's down to 6,800 and the emotion was 4.2 or something like that. Just breaking in here from the editing floor to do a little fact check. The Braille Sense 6 can currently be bought in Australia for $7,583, whilst your emotion will cost $4,595. But in round numbers, we're talking 4,000 versus 7,000
Yeah.
for a 40-cell versus a 32-cell device. It's criminal. Well, it's not criminal. It's business, is what it is.
Well, that is the truth, because I hear people get so upset with the cost of these devices and why they cost so much. And the answer is simple business. It's supply and demand. If you're only selling 1,000 units, you got to recover your development costs because it costs the same, to make that first investment in the product. Yeah. And that's why, when we talked about some of the tech at NFB, the prices for these devices were, $6,000, $4,000, really expensive devices because they're specialized tech. And they're not expecting to sell that many, and they've got to recover the cost somehow.
Yeah, but isn't it a vicious circle? I mean, they're not expecting... It's a small market anyway, and then it's even smaller because the amount of people that can actually access these devices. Again, aren't we back to the lack of information available to the government agencies?
Maybe. There used to be an old computer program called Lemonade Stand, right? And you'd set your prices based on the weather, and the higher the price, the less people bought it, and the lower there was a sweet spot for supply and demand and pricing. So, yes, you can sell more if you lower the price, but there is, at some point, you're not going to sell any more, even if it's really below cost. It's
We haven't got a true supply and demand market in our area. Like it's not an open market. There's not competition. There's very limited competition. Demand, which is mostly driven by the state that you happen to live in, the country you live in, because of your local support that you get in that country, makes demand artificial. And supply is not natural either. It's not like an open free market kind of supply because there's only certain, the whole supply and demand thing breaks down entirely when you're talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it does.
Wow. It's complicated.
It's extremely complicated.
It's not quite as simple as the smartphone is the answer to all, but kind of pointing towards that way.
Well, we talked a lot about the iPhone versus some of the specialized tech, but there are other devices out there that are mainstream that we, have some replacements for. The talk of the wearables town has been the Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses and how the AI integration is built into that. We've seen Ira announced a kludge integration to try to get the glasses to work with WhatsApp to their agents with the cameras. And are we seeing a trend where mainstream tech is taking over our accessible world for specialized devices like that?
Well, it's interesting because you say mainstream tech are taking over, But let's take the Meta Ray-Bans, for example, right? Mainstream tech, absolutely. But what do we keep saying? Is I wish it could do that. It needs to do that. It's specializing this mainstream tech for us, right? But then compare that to something like the Envision glasses, which I suppose they're running on mainstream tech, the Google glasses, but they are very much specialized running the software for us. They are blind glasses, right? But then again, look at the price. Is that what we keep coming back to, is just the price of these things? Is that what really matters?
To some extent, I think yes. The answer is yes, it does matter. And the only reason it matters is because when you can produce something for everyone that has features that we can use as well, that solve problems that we have, it's being subsidized by everyone else. So that's a good thing. It's the people who want to use the Meta glasses for AI purposes to find out what the name of that building is. That's great for them, but we can use it to find out where's the door for that building, or where's the package. So when those overlaps happen, we win. We win big and save our pocketbooks a lot of money. Because how can you, for what, $300 entry level for the basic Ray-Ban Wayfarer glasses, you get a lot of the functionality that you can get with the Envision glasses that are, 10 times that much, right? Yeah, I think you do.
Yeah, you get some of the functionality, like you really do. They're quite useful when they work in Australia.
You want to read a book to your child? The Ray-Bans aren't going to help you out with that.
No, they're not.
That's true. They're not,
But I guess it's like many things where you get 80% of the way there for 20% of the price. And that last 20% is the other 80% of the price,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the question is that $300 price tag worth enough and solve enough problems for you compared to the $3,000 cost for the Envision glasses or so? And if the answer is yes, then you've got a winner, wouldn't you say?
And again, how much can you do with your iPhone with the Envision app compared to the Envision glasses?
Now, don't get me wrong. The AI currently in the Meta Ray-Bans is not as good as some of the things that we have specifically on our iPhones.
No.
But as I've echoed before, what I like about the Ray-Bans is that it's point of use. You can use it right then and there. And for simple questions, it works out really well. At least that's been my experience. I know other people have had issues with it, but you're not going to get a huge detailed description of a scene that's going to be interactive like a Be My AI would do or something like that that's specifically for us. It's very brief, it's very short, but if you have a specific problem, you can usually get the answer.
Isn't the answer software rather than hardware, specialized software? I mean,
yes.
You could argue any of the... what do we want from the Meta Ray-Bans? We want the ability to run Seeing AI, to run Ira, Be My Eyes, whatever it may be, Envision. We want to run that on that platform. So isn't the answer for these companies, they don't have to go out of business, but put all the effort into specialized to a specific disability software?
Is this a point to bring up Orcam?
Yeah, so Orcam have dropped the vision side of their business. So the My Eye 2 range and the Orcam Read, for example, they seem to have discontinued supporting those, or they won't be doing that side of the business anymore. Instead, they're concentrating on the deaf and hard of hearing market in their new product called Hear. So it seems like, and the speculation is because of the work in AI, just really what we've been talking about here with the Meta Ray-Bans and others, that they don't really see the worth in that side of the business anymore. So
what they're saying is their specialized tech is probably not going to be viable when compared to the off-the-shelf AI that we're going to get from OpenAI or whatever other.
Exactly. Once we see these vision modules of the next-gen AI come through, it's a game changer.
Sort of pulls the rug out from under their business, really.
Yeah, early on when the Orcam first came out, my criticism of it was a completely hardware-specific on-device solution. And I thought that was short-sighted because the rate at which mobile devices and the processors within our iPhones have grown, that's where the processing power should be. You were stuck with an old chip in this little OrCam device rather than leveraging the power in your pocket. And that's one of the joys of sort of the current glasses that are in the mainstream, the Meta glasses. It's basically a camera, and the power's on your phone. There is some internal stuff going on, but mainly it's leveraging the power of your cell phone, your Android phone or your iPhone to do stuff through the MetaView app, or offloading it to the cloud for AI stuff. And that's why the price of the Meta glasses can be so inexpensive, because they're sunglasses with just a little camera sensor and a little radio in it. And they're offloading a lot of stuff to software on the phone.
I think the thing that we're trying to solve, or the reason they were going down that path, possibly, I have no idea, like I don't, but my guess is the fact that at the time, a lot of the sort of handoff between physical glasses with stuff in your phone, like we're saying, the Meta does, was not great. It failed a lot. It was not seamless at all. And also they wanted to be able to make it available to a market of people who didn't have a smartphone. They wanted to be able to, here's a standalone device. You don't need anything else. You don't need a cell plan. You don't need a smartphone. Here's a standalone device that will, solve the problem that it's designed to solve without the addition of another bit of hardware.
Yeah.
We all had the various versions of Ira's glasses.
Horizons.
And Austria.
I think it was the Austria that was the one that I had.
Austria was first. The way that tech was very similar to the, in a way, the Meta glasses. It basically had a simple battery pack in the stem, had a camera, and it used a Wi-Fi hotspot.
And it did not work well.
Well, when it worked, it worked.
They moved away from it, right? Because I had to restart that thing so much.
Yeah.
When it worked, it was great, but it really was not reliable. And I'm thinking that OrCam came into the market in that context.
Yes. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of solving a problem that they have today rather than planning for what might be coming down the pipeline in the future. I mean, we have to admit, phones have gotten better. The concept of a phone being a hotspot in an ad hoc network, that's relatively new technology that's been built into phones these days. So now we have a reliable high-speed transmission between devices to your phone that don't necessarily tie into its own ability to get to the internet through cellular or Wi-Fi services. So you can pass data a lot faster now, and it's built in and it's become more robust. But if a company had seen the writing on the walls that this is the direction we're going in, that they could have planned ahead, and they would probably still be around in this market if they had sort of...
Look, if I could see the writing on the wall, I would have bought many more Tesla shares way back in the day than I did.
But I think some things are easier to see than others. And if you're in the industry, you should see this thing. The same thing was true with NaviLens, I was thinking of as an example, perhaps, because putting up poster signs and things like that to mark landmarks with the fancy QR codes or something like that to do indoor navigation. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I can see this, it's like in time, AI recognition is going to come to a point where it's going to recognize the space and it's going to build an internal map. You're not going to need, internal markers. It's going to be able to recognize and store the inside map of a building, and you're not going to need markers. AI is going to be able to do that for you with image recognition and the same type of stuff and advancements we're using with self-driving cars.
But I guess the good thing with NaviLens and solutions like it is that it's minimal impact. It's like low cost.
Yes,
it's got the stickers up. So it solves the problem in the moment. And actually, Geordie had an experience with it today with NaviLens in the new Guide Dog Centre here in Victoria, in Melbourne. It worked really, really well.
Good.
It solved the problem right now.
Right. But the problem with the NaviLens solution, even though it is a low-cost solution, you're going to struggle to have businesses put up specific signs in their buildings for that purpose. It's not blind specific or things like that.
That's always an issue, though.
You're going to be hard pressed to get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
but if you've got a building that caters to a certain clientele, i.e. guide dogs, Victoria.
Yes, of course. Of course.
Then it's a low-cost solution to a problem. It's great.
It is. But I think looking ahead, I can envision a time where we're not going to need such signs, that when you walk into your resort hotel, it understands the space and the layout, and it uses artificial intelligence and image recognition to say, oh, I'm in the lobby. Oh, I see these hallways going off. I know exactly where you are, and I can describe how to get to your next step because I understand the space and I can see it because I'm an AI vision processor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've always got that future potential, right? I mean, you can't sort of plan on that. It depends how far something is in the future. Of course, it's going to be able to do everything.
True.
At some point. But right now, we need a solution.
In an infinite future, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Well, I don't expect flying cars to show up anytime soon.
Damn it.
Stop pulling my dreams out from under me.
But I do expect image recognition for indoor navigation, yeah.
And look, from your experience, you started to see that with the
Glidance
device, where it would recognize the fact that, you told it you wanted a front counter. It couldn't see a front counter yet, but it would keep an eye out for one and sort of spot it when it saw it, yeah.
Now, just to be clear, I did not see that exact use case in play, but that's the promise. So we'll see how it goes. But as I said, I have more confidence in them to deliver on their promises than maybe someone else, because I think they've got some...
Go on, say it.
Street cred.
You're going to say because there's a blind person behind it, weren't you? That's what you were going to say.
Yep, I am. I think that helps a lot.
So do I.
I think, yeah.
Especially one with a brain.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Apologize for all listeners who Garth just insulted.
Dude, obviously don't have brains, because I wouldn't be listening otherwise.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else to be said. It feels like we've had a very philosophical discussion about this. I don't know if there is really, it's not a binary argument, is it? It's not these are good, these are bad.
No.
There are use cases that everyone can have. Every time that I talk about this subject, I always seem to focus on the price. I think that is still relevant. I understand that's not the be-all and end-all, but I just think it does make these devices, no matter how useful they are, if they're out of reach for people financially, then people just aren't going to get the benefit from them anyway. But
you need better governments.
Yeah. I think the thing I'm taking away is that the government agencies, there needs to be more informed choices being made there. It does seem very much set in their ways that this is the devices that so-and-so needs because they're in this particular situation. And that's not the case anymore. And I don't know. I haven't had much experience of these departments, so I don't know if, I'm sure the people working there have more of an idea, but maybe there's just guidelines set in place from 10 years ago that maybe aren't as relevant today. And I also think that software is the answer. I do think that smartphones, and I still run across people now who say, no, I'm not interested in smartphones. I'm not at all. I'm fine how I am, the ways that I do things. And I get that. But I think that, to ignore how much the smartphone has changed everything we do and how much we can do now using a smartphone is kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
I would agree with that. And I think the people who are listening to our podcast are more tech savvy than others. But I would encourage people that if they're concerned about price, make the effort. If you're going to learn something mainstream, learn something that will be inexpensive, that you can transfer your skills to multiple tasks rather than investing in the specialized tech. Because I think you'll have a better outcome in the future as the software grows and the capabilities of your smartphone grow. That's my takeaway.
I'm going to actually ask a question at the end of this podcast. It's a call to listeners to give us your opinions, firstly on this particular subject, but also one that we haven't covered, and maybe we can in a future episode, and that's around other mainstream devices like dishwashers and washing machines and fridges and stoves, which it seems are becoming more and more inaccessible over time. There's very limited blind-specific versions of these devices. Okay, so what's the company in the UK, Shaun, that make a microwave and a...
There's Cobalt over here. Yeah.
Cobalt.
Cobalt
Yeah.
systems. Yeah.
So in Australia, we have access to those products. But other than Cobalt, there's very few options available. We've got white goods in general becoming more and more inaccessible, and you have to work hard to go and get one that actually has proper buttons that you can touch, or where the app integration is to a point where it actually makes the device completely usable. I think that is an area of discussion that we don't get to very often.
It's a very good point. Yeah, I agree. So let us know.
And where should they send those emails, Garth?
If you do want to send us email about this, you can send it to either g@theblind.ninja.
Or k@theblind.ninja.
Or guess what? s@theblind.ninja. Easy.
THEBLIND.NINJA.
Perfect. Okay, I think that wraps it up for another episode. Wow, will we be back next month?
Yes, we will. So tell your friends to subscribe, and let's spread the word that Audio Pizza is back.
Beautiful.
Thanks for listening.